I know in many ways this is not new news. I'm not trying to give you more information to add to the pile of already vast information that you have. I'm trying to affirm and speak to, really through my own experience and learning over the long years of a hard-lived life in many ways, through the myriad phases and encounters with illness, darkness, pain, some addiction, suffering, transformation, and the sort of growth, spiritual growth and human growth, that I've learned along the way, that it's a disappointing to the ego self and to the self that in many ways is trying to hide its way through life. And it's a disappointing piece of news that actually, what we avoid in so many ways controls our life. What we can't face casts a big shadow and a major influence over our decisions, relationships, habits, purpose, joy, qualities as well as doing things. So, what's under the iceberg in many ways is more relevant than what's on top of the iceberg. And yet, even knowing that, which I think, most do know that in many ways, if we talked about it frankly, even knowing that, still there's the pull to live on the surface and to try and keep what's underneath the surface, the rest of the iceberg, everything in the shadows, at bay. And the news is that just doesn't work. If peace is what we want, if peace is what you want, if healing is what you want, the kind of healing that I'm talking about, which is a return to a kind of naturalness, a natural wholeness within ourselves, a sort of spiritual equanimity, nothing too fancy, nothing out of the reach of humans. The lure of the, transcendent, enlightened state, sounds good, and might have a dynamic and big pull to it, but what I'm talking about is something almost far more practical and possible. And that is to realize that what we neglect, what we push away, what we can't face, what is held in the shadows, is already casting its influence upon our life. The guilt, the shame, the remorse, the anger, the rage, the fear, the hiding, the unworthiness, all of these, really energetically very heavy and very toxic, ultimately, feelings, emotions, cast their influence on our day-to-day life and the longer aspects of our life. By in a way trying to find resolution through the very experiences that we're having. Everything is trying to get to the surface in that sense. And so you know, the wounds are trying to play themselves out through our relationships, through the way we are in the world, the way we are with ourselves, the way we treat ourselves, the way we treat other people, the very fabric of the way that we relate to one another and of course to ourselves, and how we are in the world and how we are with everything that we do. So these wounds are trying to work their way out, but we don't view them like that because we're hell-bent on suppressing them. It's a strange thing with human beings. It's sort of, you know, in a way it's straightforward with animals, but it's not straightforward with us at all, because we feel the lure, we feel the attraction, for instance, of love, you know, and we want good things, and we want the best things, and we want to have harmony, and we want to have, you know, we don't go out, not everybody, I guess some do, you know, but they're unlikely to be on this channel. We don't go out hell-bent on destruction. We don't go out hell-bent on, you know, dysfunctionality or a relationship, you know, that implodes or goes wrong. No, we go out partly out of need, partly out of a desire for union, partly out of, you know, a kind of longing of the soul, for instance. You know, and yet the wound comes with us. And then after a certain period of time, the wound starts to express itself through us. That's the word that I was kind of searching for, is that which we deny, that which is held in the shadows, expresses itself through us anyway. And we have to face that. So, you know, logic says, my kind of natural logic says, if I see that the wounds, that the hurts, that the grievances are expressing themselves anyway, and there's not much I'm going to be able to do about that because I've tried control and I've tried suppression and I've tried denial. Well then, if none of those work, and they're pretty strong forces, I've tried addiction, I've tried turning away and running the other way. I know that one. And none of those work. Well then, I'm faced with a big choice, an ongoing choice. I'm not talking about a one-time deal where you just say, oh hell, I'm going to turn around and face my darkness now and that's it. You know, come what may. This is a life journey. This is an ongoing. If you've been turning away from yourself, from your shadow, from your pain for 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever years, you know, it's not just over in one fell swoop. It's the rest of your life. You're turning towards. It's a new love affair. It's a new path, fresh path. Every encounter with our shadow is fresh. It has to be, because it's happening in the now. It's not a theoretical meeting. It's not a theory. It has theoretical qualities to it, but the actual meeting is a meeting. You know, what hurts kind of rises up, expresses itself, and then we're faced with that choice. Well, what am I going to do? Am I going to be here with it, sit with it, face it, acknowledge it? Yes, there's pain. Yes, there's trouble. Yes, there's grief. Yes, there's anger. Yes, there's anxiety. Yes, there's fear. And that yes, as I said in a recent video, yes to the darkness, say yes to the darkness. That yes is the door. A yes is the door. Don't fake that yes. If it's fake, it's not really a yes. It's really a no, disguised as a yes. You can fool everybody, but you can't fool yourself. You can try fooling yourself, and we do, of course. But ultimately, you know, who are you fooling? If peace, integrity, and love, or of some sort, is what's wanted, then you can't fool yourself. And so this becomes a new path. a fresh path, you know, and a challenging path, of course. But the challenge is already happening because the shadow and the darkness is already expressing itself in your habits, lives, addictions, relationships, everything. It's in the way we are with food. It's in the way we are with drinking. It's in the way we are with all of the toxic habits that we employ. It's in the way we are with the heat of reactivity in relationship. It's the way we are with a boss. It's the way we are down at the store. It's the way we are when we're driving. It's expressing itself. In that sense, nothing is neutral. Nothing really is neutral. So, you know, there's a need. I remember, you know, the information, I was younger and I was, you know, I'd been 20 years of really toxic living, hedonism and avoidance and dysfunctionality. And I was, you know, my then partner laid down the gauntlet to me because I was getting really messy with the drink. I was kind of getting really out of control. I was, you know, there's no doubt about it. But I couldn't do anything about it myself, it would appear. And she laid down the gauntlet and said, either you go and get some help with your drinking, go and talk to somebody about it, or else we're finished. And so, you know, I did. And I started to go and see an alcohol counsellor in London, UK. And at the first session, I wriggled around and I was avoiding it all, and I was trying to pretend really that I just didn't have a problem, and I was just drinking because I enjoyed it, or I got something out of it. I just, you know, there's a lot of friends, a lot of fun, it's what you do, kind of thing. And then she got me talking about things that had happened in my life during my teenage years with my parents, and the whole of the debacle of my parents' divorce and the cataclysmic end to that relationship, that marriage, and the subsequent effect on me, which is a different story, and I'll tell it if maybe one day. It's pretty dramatic. And so I was talking about this, and then just, you know, one day she said on the second or third session, you know, she pointed out, you realise there's a very strong possibility that you're actually drinking to avoid the pain of the past. And I froze in my tracks. I was only like, I don't know, I must have been, I don't know, 35, maybe between 35 and 40. So I was not stupid, but I wasn't that mature. And I don't know why I'd had such a blind spot around it, you know, but this came like a sort of shock. You mean I'm drinking for a reason? Yeah, you're drinking to avoid the pain of the past, ultimately. And that changed everything. It changed it because what I saw and what I'm expressing now in this video is that when you really see that, I could see that what I thought was just fun or pleasure or just getting out of it, and you know, and there was a certain aspect that was wild, and I you know, had some good times, of course, but ultimately the addictive nature of it, for me anyway, not for everybody, but for me, was that the pain of all that went on was expressing itself anyway. I wasn't actually hiding from it. I wasn't actually keeping it at bay. I wasn't actually keeping it under the iceberg. I thought it was, but it was casting a huge shadow over my life that was basically becoming a train wreck of a life because of this schism between the past and, you know, and what needed to be met, and the present, and what I was trying to deny. And between these two things was my life. And that is the way that it is. Between those two is one's life. And I guess, slowly that started me on the path of a marriage of the pain and the awareness, a marriage of the shadow and the darkness and all that had been avoided, and the willingness to meet all of that, the willingness to say yes to all of that, the willingness to move into a deeper harmony with myself. And it was never easy. And the whole journey of transformation, which is a word that I use, but I don't really, it's a long journey of deconstruction, I would say, of removing all the veils that were there, that I'd laid upon myself to survive psychologically, emotionally, and so, that's another aspect of this that I'm not going to talk about here, but, we do have to practice great and profound forgiveness and kindness with ourselves, because we do what we do, and we did what we did. I was very psychologically damaged, and very emotionally damaged, and I had to put up a defensive structure. I had to put up a wall. Now you see, it was only becoming a prison. But when we're young, especially if you're younger and younger, you have to do what you have to do. We're very vulnerable, very tender, and we're easily hurt, and we're very fragile on some levels. And so we do what we do, and there's not much point in punishing ourselves for it later in life. There are a lot of people who feel a lot of guilt and shame and unworthiness, and anger is a big one. Suppressed and denied anger is a big one on the path. But for God's sake, we have to be very kind with ourselves about all the things that we did, or the responses that we had in our ignorance, in our desperation, in our need. But the point being, we're not that anymore. When you see how that whole momentum is expressing itself in life, but you're here and you want peace and you want a deeper harmony and you want to live with a little more, reconciliation between these different aspects of yourself, then at a certain point we have to meet what is under the iceberg, what is there. And I know I say this all the time, but there's nothing much else to say. If this kind of healing into awakening, it's like the fine line, because we talk too much about awakening and it excludes some of the human condition. But if we talk about just the shadow and the healing and stuff, we exclude the fact that awakening is a fundamental part of the journey of spiritual depth. So these two have to kind of have a dance. They melt into one. But at a certain point, the human has to be attended to, as well as the realization that consciousness and awareness is all there is. Both of these two involved in a very kind of exquisitely painful dance together. I think I've said enough. I think I've gone on for 20 minutes now. I only meant to make a short one. Meet your life. Meet that which is being expressed unconsciously, consciously. Meet it consciously, with grace and with depth and with silence and with love. Above all, with love. The love that passeth the mind, the love that passeth the grievance. That love is imbued in us all. And we can choose to hold that as we meet our pain and the pain of others. We can choose to. That is a profound choice that we can make. Bless you.